You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody, the podcast where we explore the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. My guest today is running for Board of Education with the Boise School District. She holds several advanced degrees, including a master's degree. She has tons of experience working with at-risk youth, and she's just a really interesting person. I'm always fascinated in understanding why people are running for the school board, considering it's an incredibly thankless job. The pay is not great. In fact, it's around zero, and it's just an enormous time sink. But she is running in spite of all these things, and it was wonderful to hear why and what her priorities are and what she hopes to bring to Boise. I really enjoyed speaking with her, and I think you're going to enjoy the conversation. So, without further ado, the woman, the myth, the legend, Krista Hasler. You seem like a reasonably sane person. Why are you doing this to yourself and your family?
I seriously wake up and ask myself that every day. Really just, I see what's going on in the schools and I'm worried about it.
What in particular? I mean, people are still learning math to some degree.
Yeah.
To some degree, that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's, right. I got into it thinking, I'm going to run for office because I think I've got some stuff I can help these kids with. I've got really relevant experience. And I have things that I'll bring into the schools. I'll build them up. I'll help make this better. We can bring it back to center. We can kind of calm all this stuff that's post-COVID down. And I've been shocked. It was such a naive perspective. It's like a rude wake-up call. Just as I'm facing the media, trying to make me look irrelevant. The school district, just starting off this election, one of the first weeks we were in, they sent out an email district-wide. And in that district-wide email was a back-to-school email for everybody, and it just had the incumbents' names listed. That was it. Like, there's an election, and here are the 5 people you should vote for.
The school district sent this out. The
school district, to their district-wide email. Then you click on it, and it takes you through to the next spot. Well, what do you see there? Oh, just the 5 incumbents' names. No one else, none of the other, there's 13 candidates running. It's not just 5 people. There's 13 total candidates. And so you had to search that page to find it. So that was super frustrating to me. And I emailed the district. I said, what are you doing? You're running an election. This is a public election. You don't get to decide the outcome of this. You stay neutral. And so...
Did they, I'm sorry to interrupt, did they have a response to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did. The response was, we identify the races by who holds the seat. That was the response.
How do you mean? That's not a race if you're identifying it as who holds the seat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I went back to them with. I said, this is a biased and partial way to hold an election, and if you want to keep holding elections, you better get it together. And then, to add on top of that, Matt, what was crazy is that same day that email went out on Facebook, they had taken a post, they made a post of 2 incumbents that had been given an award in June. So 2 months before, that's when the story all came out on it. 2 months later, they posted on August 3rd, that this email went out and they put this post up on Facebook. On August 3rd, they put up this post about these 2 incumbents that had been given this award, and then underneath it, it said #leadership. So here they are using another district-wide forum. They've saved this post to the middle of the election. They didn't post it when, in June it would have been appropriate. They saved it. And they put it up. And so I took that to him too. I said, this is a district-wide forum that you have. And you're promoting the people you want to serve on your board. Has anyone ever thought 3 of the 5 people running that are the incumbents, they hand-selected them? They hand-selected those people. Of course they want them to stay in. Of course they want their other 2 people to stay in. And, on top of that, you've got Nancy Gregory, who's been on the board for 20 plus years. You've got Maria Greeley, who's been on there for 10 years. Do we really need these professional school board members? Is that really what's in the best interest of our kids? Or maybe some fresh ideas, a different perspective, some needed relevant experience coming into the board? Would that benefit our schools?
Well, if you think about 20 years ago when Nancy Gregory was elected, first, we didn't have iPhones. We didn't have, I was still in college 20 years ago. The shift in the world is so profound and substantial. 20 years ago, I think you could make the argument that schools were still arguing about, actually relevant things, which is, hey, what kind of, methodology should we use to teach algebra, right? Mm-hmm. And again, Common Core is I think a train wreck in my opinion, but it doesn't matter. The point is you may have been still arguing about relevant things with education. Now, education itself is on the defensive because people were like, look, I understand you want to teach math, but there's this other stuff we want to teach too. It's like, hang on now, hang on.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this isn't the most relevant or useful or effective, way to spend time in schools. There's an enormous problem, I think, that is really being brought to light with the school district having access to everyone's ear. Like you're saying, they send out this email, district-wide email. This email goes out and it lists the 5 people that, theoretically they want to win. It doesn't list all of the people. It doesn't say, hey, look, in, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, these are all the people running all of these different things. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge problem with lack of a platform for parents and potential people running alike to communicate. Because even outside of an election year, communication is a massive problem up against the juggernaut of the school district. Because there was an instance that I was involved in bringing to light for the school district right before I left California. And what had happened is during COVID, there were these ever-changing, like California was a train wreck. There were these ever-changing rules that regulated what you could and could not do with students and like close contacts and everything. Long story short, some teacher takes a test on Friday, comes out that it's positive on like Sunday. The district sends out an email to all these 6th and 7th graders saying, hey, you were a close contact. Yes, you can still come to school. You just need to bring us a test by, Wednesday or something, a negative test. So fine. They send that out on Sunday. Everyone shows up Monday for school as they were instructed to. And then at like 9:15, 100 6th and 7th graders get pulled out of class, booted outside of the gates. They segregate them from vaccinated and unvaccinated first and then boot them outside of the gates. And the kids are saying, what are you doing? Like, my mom dropped me off. I don't even have a cell phone. They're like, you're going to have to get a hold of your mom somehow because you can't be at school. Because what happened is on Sunday, they didn't realize that theoretically the rules had changed like on Wednesday of the week before. There was this big snafu. People got booted out. And then the district, so literally like you have an 11-year-old sitting on the curb crying, can't get a hold of her mom, and she has to borrow a cell phone. And then all of a sudden these like 100 sets of parents start getting these phone calls like, Mom, it's me. Like, you have to come pick me up. It's like, who are you calling me from? Because they're borrowing cell phones and parents are all freaking out. Yeah. Like, schools are supposed to be Fort Knox for children. Like, you're not supposed to be able to get a 10-year-old out of school for anything. And all of a sudden these kids were on the curb. So that was terrible. But what was worse is district-wide communication allowed the district to put all of the blame on the parents. They sent out a district-wide email saying, hey, the parents didn't file the correct paperwork, or the parents did this, the parents did that. And literally all the parents that had the blame fall on them, all they could do was go onto Facebook and say, like, that's not true, right? So again, the district has this connection to all of the populace, this district email, that they utilize in my opinion, very inappropriate ways, just like you're saying. And it's like, you need a line of communication that's superior to that, or at least parallel to that.
Yeah, or just using that line of communication more effectively, more regularly. More
honestly.
Our district's spending $500,000 on marketing for the school district to tell everyone what great programs are in our district. Isn't that amazing? $500,000 taxpayer dollars are going to pay for that.
Wait, what are they marketing?
Yeah,
like
all the great programs.
This is public school. What are you doing?
Yeah, I know. To bring students back into Boise because our enrollment's been down. And so they're marketing to try to bring students into Boise. Like you said, it's public schools. I mean, you move into the neighborhood, you're in the school. I don't really understand that, but it's to tell their story. That's what Dave Wagers keeps saying. It's to tell our story. I'm like, tell your story through email. That's free. You can just email out to all these parents what's going on, what programs are available. That's an effective tool for communication for parents who want to be communicated with. I just met a guy this weekend when I was knocking doors, and he said, well, why do you think that parents want to be communicated with more? And I was like,
you clearly don't have kids,
yeah,
sir.
Well, he did actually. That was the surprising thing. And he said to me, I was like, what? Okay, well, yeah, as a parent, I want to be communicated with more. I haven't really met anyone else who didn't want to be just communicated with about these different issues. And he's like, well, how would you do that? And I said, well, email. Oh, I don't check my email. Well, then you don't want to be communicated with.
Yeah, right.
If you know the district is going to email you, check your email if you care. If you don't care, then stand aside and let the parents who do care be communicated with. The district can do that. That's part of their job. That's part of why they have all these administrators and all these administrative assistants, all these different employees working. They can email us. They can tell us this stuff. They can email us and say, we're discussing, bringing full-day kindergarten in. And we'd like you to just take a minute and fill out this survey about how your 5-year-old might do coming to school for 8 hours a day.
Right.
How is that going to work for them? Is that going to work great? Is that going to work great for your family's work schedule? Is that going to work great for your child who's been at home with a parent? There's a lot of different circumstances, and that email didn't ever go out. That never went out. The email that came out was, we've moved to district-wide, and we're celebrating that. And everyone should be excited about it. And
do you love how there's a declaration of what your emotions should be?
Yeah.
Like, we're celebrating, and if you're not celebrating, you're on the wrong side.
Well,
it's like, well, wait a minute, Ken. Like, I have a couple. Can I get one question answered?
Yeah. Can I just have a minute to maybe think about what is it best for my child?
Right.
And like, can I have an option? Can I have an option that maybe includes what might be best for my child? And that's the part of the school district that I think, isn't working well right now. That's the kind of leadership we're not getting. We're not getting people that are open to outside ideas or additional feedback. Where's the diversity in this school board that we've got right now in the Boise School District? Where's that diversity when you've got 7-0 votes on everything? And, there's workshops that are open to the public on Friday at noon, but they're not recorded. So if you can't show up Friday at noon, you don't know what they're actually discussing. You just see this 7-0 vote every time. Is there a discussion? I don't know. I would hope there's discussion.
Well, look, I get probably like 1,000 to 2,000 emails a day. Like, the emails, like, it's not quite that bad, but I understand to a certain degree parents saying, hey, look, don't send me another email, because first off, we're on our phones too much anyway, in my opinion. Like, I'll speak for myself. I'm on my phone too much, and I don't mess around on social media. I'm not trying to entertain myself, but like, there's a whole world of communication outside of the basic email. Like, for instance, there are some schools individually like have student-run podcasts, right, that are like 15 minutes. And that's a really cool way for parents to kind of understand what the student body is up to and what they're doing. And they're not like high production value or anything. It's like just a little audio podcast. Like, you get a $50 mic and, you can do a little radio show. But there are all kinds of different ways that the district could communicate. But again, attempt to communicate. It doesn't take a lot of thought to say like, hey, look, if we send out an email survey, right, or an email notification that we're going district-wide and fill out this survey, and we only get like 2% of the respondents back, then we know this is not an effective form of communication when we guesstimate 50% of people have an opinion, right? Like, if you only get 2% response and you only estimate 2% of people care, then that's about accurate. But it's like, there are a lot of people who care about full-day kindergarten, right? Like, I have a kindergartner right now, and man, it's a long day.
Yeah.
He's about to turn 6, but he's 5 right now. And it's like, that's a long day, man.
Oh, yeah.
And, at least some form of communication, like, hey, should we have an option program? So some kids just aren't ready for that when they're 5, or some starting early might be 4, for crying out loud. Like, you have a lot of different options. Just communicate. Right? Like, let's talk about this. Let's find out what the community actually wants.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, it's easy to have a full day option that maybe the afternoon isn't as rigorous academically for these little kids. And so those kids that can't hack the full day can go home. Right. And they're not really missing out on the like nuts and bolts of what they need to be getting in kindergarten.
Right.
And so that's the part of it. I'm like, there's a lot of ways to solve this. It doesn't have to be that you put in another half-day classroom or, there's a lot of ways to do that. But those attempts, and actually, I think Dave Wagers sort of educated me in one of our interviews, stating that there was a half-day, they had a half-day flexibility or something. I don't know. Something, he was telling me there was something, but I'm like, well, that really didn't make it from your brain to my brain at any point in this, except for right now as your opponent in this race, that I'm hearing there's some kind of an option. So that, like, my little girl is having a hard time. She's waking up, she's crying, it's getting a little better, we're on week 2. But she's like, can I just please come home and hang out with you? Because it's been a different environment. She hasn't had to go to daycare. She's been at home with me, and she likes it.
Right.
So, which is fine. She's doing okay. We're adjusting. And, I figured she would be. But a lot of kids don't have that same temperament, can't work through, can't build up, and what options are there? So that's the part of it I just look at. I think, step back, take a minute, think about the fact that, there's 23,000 people and it doesn't work for everybody, but try to give some options. Just try.
Let's just talk too.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I find very interesting about the way that mass communication has started rolling out is that there's almost this idea that if you're saying something that's unpopular, it is absolutely unadvisable to talk about it at all.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, look, this is not going to be popular, so I'm going to bury this. We're gonna cloak this in like a celebration. We're going to tell everybody that they need to be happy and celebrating because we know that some people aren't going to be happy. So we're going to dictate what the only acceptable response is, which is, of course, celebration. Mm-hmm. When in reality, there's so much space for, hey, look, we know this is not popular for some of you. And to that end, we have lined up this program, or we're trying to work this out. But we think this is best for everyone on average, right, for these reasons. And again, we understand that not all of you agree, and we want to hear from you, and we want to work with you to figure out, okay, is there a middle ground? Like you're saying, hey, if we're going full day, can we just really front load the academics and, hours 9 to noon, and then, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, this is going to be like, artsy stuff. And, and by the way, if you're a parent that's working and you want that full day to 4 o'clock or around as much, we're also going to have, like a chill station. We're like, do you remember like the carpet squares?
Oh,
yeah. It was like, if your kid, like, 'cause my kindergartner last week, exact same thing. We find out that at one point, one of the days he was crying and kind of wanted to come home, and he's just fried. Like he just can't. And again, he's adjusting, right? Mm-hmm. We're in week 2 now, and we're getting there, and we're going to work on it. But as they get more tired, their behavior is going to shift, and then you're going to get behavioral issues that everybody needs to anticipate. And it's like, look, maybe we ease into this. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot for those littles.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, just even shifting to your bury it concept. I mean, the dress code, June. So I'm not even talking, you were talking COVID. I'm not even talking COVID.
Right.
I'm talking post-COVID.
Right. Well, I
just
think
the reality.
The big thing that I think COVID drew is, like, forget COVID, the disease, but the communication and the institutions that actually have control, that was really brought to light, like teachers unions, districts, all of these things. So look, forget COVID completely. I don't ever want to
the power sources. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's a really important thing. So you were saying dress code.
Yeah. So in June, there was a dress code on the table, and thankfully one parent checked the agenda for the meeting of what was coming out the next Monday. And in that, she found a dress code that said, if your nipples, your groin, and your buttocks are covered, then you can stay at school. That was in the dress code. That was the writing in the dress code. And she was like, what? That's it? And so she just took it, emailed it out to a bunch of parents, got them to show up to the meeting, and they acknowledged, we didn't work with the community enough on this.
Okay. So I read this. You got to back me up and inform me. So did the board say that they had sent out a community? Was it buried in an email on page 5? Or they literally were just like, hey, I got an idea. This dress code needs revision. So we're going to unilaterally just change it so your nips are covered and you're cool then. Yeah.
That was pretty much, I mean, again, I wasn't on the board, so I can't say what their whole thinking process was. I just know what it's been like as a parent to find out, like, what? So, they decided we're going to look at the dress code. We're putting a dress code in place. Okay, so that's what was communicated out to me as a parent. They took away uniforms at my kids' junior high this year. So they said, but a dress code, a district-wide dress code is coming. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to go from polos, and like khakis to some kind of a dress code. Okay, well, that some kind of a dress code was shocking, right? I mean, it was absolutely shocking. I thought, are you kidding me? Universities don't even have a dress code like that. Who can show up? The district's whole mission is to prepare these kids for college, career, and citizenship.
Right.
What kind of a career lets you show up dressed like that? What kind of university lets you show up dressed like that? None of them.
Yeah, so what workplace ever?
That's the whole thing. Is I'm thinking, how is this preparing? How are you doing your job?
Right.
How is this a successful way of doing your job? It's not.
So this dress code was for a middle school?
No, it was for all secondary schools. So high school, middle school, junior highs. So in Boise, it's junior high and high school. So junior highs and high school, that was their dress code.
So they take away uniforms, which again, I'm a fan of polos and like khakis, but whatever, maybe not everybody is, fine. So they take that away and they're like, but we're going to have like a robust and successful dress code.
Well, that's what was communicated out as a parent. And again, the uniforms, they just told us, these are just going away. They didn't ask anyone. They didn't ask our kids what they thought about him. They didn't ask any of the parents what they thought about him. They just pulled him out of the 2 schools that actually still had him. So, well, not actually still. They were the only schools that ever had him. But, all the kids I know actually were disappointed, which is kind of surprising. But junior high, it takes a lot of social pressure off. So if they had just asked some of these questions, it's just a matter of asking and communicating. And that's just not going on. And I did this interview and the statesman came out and said, they're all upset about the district not communicating. Well, wait a second. That's their job. They need to be communicating about these policies. They need to not be covering stuff up. Their job is to be open and honest with the public. And that is not going on. So that's the kind of stuff that I just look at and think, come on, make a change. Right. Shift, make an adjustment. This, and what we've really had highlighted post-COVID is half the school district feels differently than the other half of the school district. So how can we just get to a place of civility? That we just let our schools work for our kids to be educated in and educated about education, how to think, not what to think. Why can't we just go back to some of those things that work?
Right. The 1980s actually in public education underscored trying to teach critical thinking, so how to think.
Yeah.
And it's an exceedingly difficult thing to do because first off, the people teaching it have to be really on point with communication because the structure of actually teaching people how to think is one of argument. Because what you have to do is figure out how you punch holes in different ideas without like ad hominem attacks, without like non sequiturs, without straw man arguments. So you have to first teach students what all of these rhetorical devices are. Mm-hmm. And then you have to say, now you guys get to fight over a topic. And it's very difficult we see in mass media now, there's absolutely 1,000% lack of any attempt at persuasion, right? Like even in when I was graduating, I actually studied rhetoric in college. And when I was graduating in 2004, the head of the rhetoric department got up and gave this speech. And I never forgot it because he said, look, we are moving into an age where persuasion is the last thing people do, right? What we actually do now is create monsters and we create heroes and we just lambast each other. We don't actually attempt to persuade people at all. But again, critical thinking is a very, very important tool because if you can't do it, if you can't argue with somebody else and argue effectively, you'll never be able to argue with yourself to come up with your own good plan for your life. Yeah. Like you'll never be able to strengthen and kind of refine your own thoughts on what you're doing because you'll always fall back into like, well, that guy's an idiot. I just shouldn't listen to him. It's like, that's not a reason for you to engage in a certain behavior. Like just saying somebody's an idiot, like is what you're doing a good idea? And again, to your point, let's teach people how to think, not what to think anymore. You come up with your own idea. But you have to come up with your own idea by using these tools. Like you have this hammer, you have this nail. You don't get the screws. You have to use these. Like that's a really important thing that we've gotten away from.
Yeah.
One of your key priorities, bring back civility, which I thought was absolutely beautiful, right? Because we are trying so hard to run all of the decent and well-intentioned and competent people out of education and just leave it with like this hollow shell of nastiness, right? So like, hey, let's restore decency and civility. But you also speak about wanting to bring education back to education for careers and college. And I think obviously student debt and college debt is a massively hot topic right now for obvious reasons. But it's almost like people are neglecting. In the argument, people really want to talk about what people deserve and like how education benefits all of us and we should all share in the cost. And it's like, okay, is it possible at all in your mind to envision that students perhaps have spent too much money in college, that they've made poor decisions when selecting colleges, right? Like people are not going to junior colleges or utilizing them in the way that they could be. And it's like, is there any wiggle room here for, hey, maybe we shouldn't be pushing so many people to go to college and go to these private schools and go to, take out massive debt and educate people? Talk to me about this, because when you said that, I was like, yes, this person gets it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing is it's not, we're living in a generation of entitlement right now that I deserve. Well, tell me this, Matt, maybe you deserve this and your parents provided it, but I paid for my own college. I paid for my own master's degree. I paid for my own living expenses. And I paid for them, some of them, after I actually got a job. And, I made decisions differently. I stayed on an academic scholarship. I had to work hard at my grades. And nobody can take that kind of work away from me. It built character in me. It taught me to be something that you can't just get from someone else paying your way. I paid my own way. And I learned from that. And my kids will pay their own way. And my kids actually now, they talk about school. They talk about school and they talk about how hard they want to work so that they can do well and they can be on scholarship. And they have ideas of what they want to do. And, lots of people have looked at me. I've been home with my kids. And people have said, well, you got this master's degree, you had this whole career, and you walked away from that? Well, yeah, I did, to be with my kids. It's all about making choices. It's all about making choices and then reaping the consequences of those choices. And that's something we're getting away from in our society. It's like consequences don't have a place anymore. We're trying to take them out. Well, no. That's what comes with choices.
Right.
You can't take away consequence. And consequence is not negative. Consequences are positive too. Both sides of consequence. And so I look at, choices I've made in my life, and they've been intentional choices. And they've been intentional choices that were driven from the time I was pretty young. I knew I was paying for my own college, and I made decisions differently. I prepared myself differently, and I wanted to go to college. Well, now there's a lot of options, tech, right? There's so many different places and avenues you can go. But even just looking at, I have to go to Harvard or Stanford. Well, that's your choice. And that's going to cost a lot more money than going to this other state college.
Well, and obviously, if you can get into Harvard or Stanford, go, do whatever you have to do. Yeah, fine, go to Harvard. But the student loan crisis is not from people going to Yale and Princeton and Harvard. It's from people going to middle or lower end private schools. Mm-hmm. For instance, San Francisco. Okay, San Francisco has several universities in it. You have University of San Francisco, which is a private university, and you have San Francisco State, right? Mm-hmm. San Francisco State costs about $10,000 per year in tuition. It might be $11,000, but it's college, right? You can go to City College of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. It's a junior college, and that is almost free. In the surrounding counties, they actually have free junior college. So City College of San Francisco is a pittance. It's $1,000 a year or something. First 2 years, and then go to San Francisco State. I have very good friends and family members who've done this exact same thing. Their entire college tuition racked in at the time around $20,000 for all 4 years. Now, naturally, you have living expenses, and some people worked and some people took out loans, and you absolutely can do that. I did janitorial stuff in college, right? And I also started tutoring when I was 20. So I was tutoring the other Berkeley students in math and writing and things of that nature. So, you work, you get after it. So you have somebody who does the San Francisco State and junior college route versus somebody who goes directly into USF, mm-hmm. right? University of San Francisco, private Jesuit school. And mm-hmm. fine, if that's your jam, that's your jam. For $60,000 a year in tuition. Now, mind you, you're also living and eating and breathing in San Francisco, which is another, probably 25 at least. If you can live in San Francisco and eat and survive for only $2,000 a month, you're crushing, mm-hmm. right? So this person going to USF, which I have several family members also who did that, these days in today's dollars, you're looking at 85 all in, which is so astronomical to me. This is not Harvard. Yeah. This is not Princeton. This is not Stanford. This is USF, which, by the way, if anyone listening to this could name a dynamite major that only USF offers, or they offer in the top tier, I'll listen. But mm-hmm. last I checked, it's what do you do at USF? Well, you study stuff. It's what kind of stuff? It's well, general ed and whatnot. It's general ed for $85,000 a year.
Yeah.
When people talk about affordable college, and again, I was in college admissions for almost 20 years. I'm not even of the opinion that everybody should go to college.
Yeah.
But when you talk about affordable college, it's like, we have it. You're just not looking for it. The gal I got, the human being, love the ladies there. I talk to them every morning. This one gal's a senior, and she's at I believe Boise State, and she's studying health sciences. And she was joking. She's like, I'm going to have to get a master's because, what do you do with an undergrad in health sciences? But she said, look, I think she has like $5,000 of debt because she went to a JC first. She worked when she was there, and then she's going to Boise State, and she's doing fine, and she's working at the Human Being. That's how I see her.
Yeah.
And it's like, good for you. Great. Your degree will count the exact same as someone who went to, a private school 30 minutes down the road.
Choices and consequences.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. And it doesn't just apply to college. It applies to high school. It applies to junior high. I mean, that's what I want to look at, putting these choices and consequences in sooner for these kids. So they've got a path that they've already figured out. This is what I'm good at. These are my strengths. And, they hit 9th grade, and they already know what direction they want to start going in high school because they know what they want to focus on. They can figure a lot of that out in junior high. Oh, I really like these art classes I'm taking. Oh, I'm really good at this math that I'm doing and this science that I'm doing. I think I want to shift more of my focus and attention there. If we started doing more of that at this younger state of really exploring, kids would go to college and have a better idea of why they wanted to go there. Or they'd go to their tech school and know why they wanted to go there and feel confident about what they were going to be doing to carry it forward after.
Right. The college and career centers have largely become just college, injection areas, right? Like there's not – do you think there's enough discussion in high school, 9th to 12th grade, about like, yes, college is one avenue, but hey, trade schools are another avenue, right? Like you can go into any of the trades and connections there, because that's one thing where it's like, okay, if we tell people that they have to go to college, a lot of people will go to college that shouldn't go to college. But if we're not telling people that you can go to college or you can do this other thing, then they're not going to know what to do with themselves, right? So do you feel like Boise is doing enough to help students understand viable, responsible, respectable options outside of college after high school?
Honestly, I actually do feel like they're doing a good job with that. So they have really good programs in Boise School District regarding getting in and exploring what you can do and coming out with a certificate or, being able to be a dental assistant. There's different programs that are in the Boise School District that are fantastic. And that's something I want to expand and add to. So creating more of what you're talking about, Matt, making it bigger, a broader spectrum. So kids, there's more of these programs that they can drill into and find, yeah, this works for me. I'm good at this. I want to keep working at this. That's what I want to pursue after. So they actually do a good job of that. They pair up with there's a technical school that they pair up with. So Boise Schools does do a good job of that. And I've been impressed with it. That's been, something that I've looked at and I've thought, it's great. Let's keep building that up, add more into that. And in addition to that, other school districts surrounding us, they've got dual credit degrees. Okay, so kids are going to high school, they're getting their dual credits. We have dual credit classes at Boise School District, but we don't have dual credit degrees where they actually come out with an associate's degree by the time they're done. It's a super rigorous program that you have to work through, but they have it over in West Ada. They've got it in some of the charter schools locally, and we don't have it in this district that has so much money. And I think let's bring that opportunity in. What is that going to take? West Ada has figured it out. What's it going to take to bring it in for our kids? And not because everyone wants to go to college, but those who want to come out of high school with an associate's degree and that have that dedication and that discipline, they can do it.
So back up just for a second, because this is one of the most unsung and amazing things that school districts in this area, some of them, engage in. So walk me through what the dual credit program is. Like if I'm in 9th grade, what does it mean for me?
Well, so, I haven't actually gone and looked at it that much. I just know they have it. So and
I'm not asking like how many extra hours of school, but like in a nutshell, like you can literally through your high school programs come out with a college degree. Like say you want to do accounting or say you want an AA and you want to be like an LVN or something. You can have that by the time you're 18.
Yeah. They work with a local college. I'm trying to remember. I don't know who they're doing it through. I just know what's happening. That's the thing. I don't have all the details on it, but I know what's happening. And I'm thinking, why doesn't Boise have this? So yeah, West Ada School District, you get in, you have to get into their program, and then they're partnering with the college, and you come out with an associate's degree.
Man, that's just so wild.
Right? 2 years of college paid for by the time you finish high school. And in Boise School District, there's $4,000 a year that goes to students to pay for these college. So if they're in AP classes, it pays for their tests they take. It pays for, so that money, $4,000 per student per year, is a lot of money. So how can they transfer that over? These kids that want to end up, that have that, like I said, the discipline to do it, make it available to them.
Right, because the AP, everybody likes the idea of AP classes, which is fine. Like, I think we should all be striving, you want to get to calculus, good for you. You want to take AP bio, great, whatever, it doesn't matter. Or you want to take normal bio and then push yourself over the edge, that's fine. But the AP class push it's really serving such a small slice of the populace because, like, look, say you want to take the AP test in math. Awesome. Like, I'm all for it. Like, I took calculus in high school. Like, I really like calculus. But it's a tiny fraction of people going through high school. Like, it's not accessible to everyone. So if you're going to fund AP testing and you're going to make these specialty pools of resources for people that want to take AP tests, that's wonderful and all. But you still need to recognize you're really only dealing with like 5% of the populace. Sure. Like, those aren't resources that are going to go to benefit everyone or will be in any way accessible because you have to be on a calculus track by the time you're in 8th grade. Like, if you're not taking algebra in 8th grade, it's going to be really hard for you to get calculus by your senior year. So you can figure out really quickly, like, hey, this is not real. It's not like funding a fine arts program. Like, I played trumpet, big fan of music, right? It's not like funding a fine arts program where even in your sophomore year or junior year, you're like, you know what? I think I want to try the clarinet. Yeah, you might not be first seed, but you can try the clarinet, right? It's not like you can dabble in calculus. So again, funding a more widely available program like you're talking about, I think that's just, it's only common sense.
Well, and some people choose AP. I've been asking parents. So that's where I haven't gone through this whole process. I've just asked parents, like, what do you think is working? What do you like for your students? And just some of that dialogue, I think as a trustee is invaluable. Just somebody who's willing to ask people, what's your experience been? What's working for your kids that's already gone through the system? So one mom told me, well, we choose AP classes because of the university our kids are going to go to. Right? An AP class there is going to work more effectively than doing this dual credit program would. Sure. And they would have to actually enroll them elsewhere to do the dual, because it's not in Boise schools. But still, they were pointing out the benefits to doing the AP track versus a dual credit. Like, even if it was available, why she wouldn't choose the dual credit program. But for someone who's going to a different university that makes sense for, make it available. That's my whole thing. I look at it. And, in addition to this, look, Matt, when we look at this, we have 100% of our kids, right? If we look at 18%, that encompasses our gifted program and the exceptional program in the Boise School District. Okay. So that's the kids that are on IEPs with special needs and the kids that are in the gifted track. 82% of the students fall in between there. What are we doing to personalize their education? Right? How are we benefiting them? We're personalizing the 18%, right? We've seen they have needs that need to be personalized, but the 82%, we're not personalizing it.
Right.
They're grouped into a class of 23, maybe, 28 students, a lot of kids, and they're taught to the level, I've been asking teachers, because again, I'm not a threatening person. I can ask people right now.
Not a threatening person.
Well, they don't see any threat in talking to me at this point. Everyone's willing to answer my questions.
It's your shirt. It's a very nice shirt.
Oh,
I don't feel threatened by you at all.
That's right. Yeah. Good, Matt. I'm glad I've
you
brought your
ease.
guards down.
You
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. But because I'm able to ask them questions, I've said to these educators, well, tell me, I look at what's going on in elementary school, and I don't think we're actually hitting these needs of these kids the way that I think we could be. And these educators are secondary educators, so more high school, junior high. And I kind of expected for them, it was like, oh, well, we're personalizing because we've already got kids grouped into the tracks that they fit in and everything else. And they said, we're teaching to the lowest level. That's what's going on. Because when we have kids come in and they can't even speak English and they can't, all these other things, and We're providing equitable education and inclusive education, and that's the focus. Well, we can't teach what we have taught. The last 10 years, things have shifted. It's not the same as it was. I don't think that's okay. I think we need to look at our outcomes. We're not doing as well as we should be, and we have all the resources in the world, and we have these educators that are fantastic. So how else can we restructure this? What do we need to do to fix it? And I don't have all the answers, but what I do have is I have a heart that's in it, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm willing to ask questions, and I'm willing to listen to what people bring back to me. And I think that's something that's kind of been lost in what's going on. I didn't know this. The media's fed me lots of things. I've had all these interviews, and I didn't know that Boise School District's behind in our IRI scores. So kindergarten to third grade, we're behind a lot of schools in Idaho, and Idaho's like second to the bottom in the nation for education. So
right. So if this is a district that's behind a lot, and
I shouldn't say like a lot, right? We're not like at the bottom of the bottom, but we're behind, and we have $390 million in our school district. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of resources. So I'm sitting there questioning, like, why are we behind? I know there's got to be some unique things to why we're behind, but one of the things that they fed me, and then I found this tool that I looked up, our district compared to all these other districts. Well, our district, through the course of a year in this, IRI scores, we increased 9%. Okay, so students increased 9% throughout the year.
And when you say 9%, that's 9% of what?
9% of growth. Like that was 9% of like how much they grew in comparison.
Gotcha.
In comparison to Bonneville School District. Okay, so this is over by Idaho Falls. Okay, so Bonneville's not a small district. It's, still a good sized district. And Bonneville's increase was 24%. So you look, that's pretty drastic. Why are we not increasing at the same rate as they are? Right? We all are trying to teach. Like I said, I don't think it's because we have less talented staff or educators. I don't think it's about that at all. So what's missing? Has anyone called Bonneville School District up? Has anyone maybe asked them what they're doing?
Excuse me. Could you just give us a little info on how you pulled that off?
Well, why not? Right? That's what I would do. Right. If I was a trustee, I actually would get on the phone and say to Bonneville School District, find out who I needed to be talking to and find out, what are you guys doing over there?
Right.
You've got something that's working. I mean, when you look at it, school districts, we're not competing. We're all trying to build kids up. It's a district-wide, statewide effort.
Right.
Right? So I don't think anyone over at Bonneville is going to be like, we can't tell you. We can't tell you what's actually working great for our kids. I think if someone just called them up, had a conversation, started working at it, what are they doing differently with those little kids? What's working over there?
Right.
That's what you do if you're successful in a business. That's what you do if you're successful anywhere. You look at where success is and you chase it and you figure out how to get it for yourself. And Boise School District, we should be the number 1 district in the state. We have more money than everyone. We have 63% more funding per student than West Ada School District. And they are outperforming us on our IRI scores. That's pretty amazing. We should be looking at this stuff. What are the problems? What are the hangups? Now, maybe it's population, maybe it's parent, family involvement. I'm not sure. Maybe someone on the board, if I actually was able to sit down and talk to them, maybe they could tell me what it is. I don't know what it is, but I just think we need to look at the problems. We need to stop saying, oh, we're going to celebrate this. That was the response that, was given in the interviews or in the survey when we all answered to Idaho Ed was, well, we should be celebrating these scores that we have, and we should be celebrating. I'm like, wait a second. That's not looking at the reality of this and fixing it. Yes, we should celebrate that this many kids can read. Yes, we should. But we should be pushing to that next level of success. We're capable of it. Our kids are capable of it. We're seeing all these other kids, they're capable of it. And Idaho is too low for the great state that we are in our education. We need to be building it.
Yeah, man, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And again, I agree with you that you have a lot of funding. And look, I understand just throwing money at a problem is not really the solution, but understanding how other school districts in the state are dealing with the same problems is obviously one of the go-to things, which is like, look, what are you actually doing here? Mm-hmm. And look, without putting a tinfoil hat on, I spoke to a 40-year veteran teacher some months back, and she was saying, look, here's the deal. she worked in increasing English literacy with elementary kids for like 20 years. That was part of her career. And she said the problem was you get extra funding if you have a certain number of students in the school that don't speak English, right? Or aren't reading English or something like that, right? The problem is if you start reducing that number, you lose funding to the school. Well, the school's already accounted for this funding, right? They've accounted for it in aids, they've accounted for it in programs, they've accounted for it in whatever it is they're spending money on. She's like, so we ran into problems because we were actually moving students out of the lower tier that got extra funding into the mainstream so rapidly that it was actually affecting the budget. So the higher ups came to this woman. They're like, hey, you have to slow down. Like, you need to stop doing what you're doing because you're moving these kids too aggressively, and like it's kind of screwing things up. Now, look, I'm not saying that's what's going on with Boise, but what I am saying is I think there are problems once you get large, bureaucratically run, public institutions that have accounted for funding. And if funding is tied to a certain thing, then they don't want that thing to necessarily go away. Now, again, I am not saying that the administration of the school board in this district is intentionally keeping people back. But you have to start figuring out, like, okay, look, how can we move away from being reliant on this extra funding, right? And that's one of the big pieces. Because if you are reliant on the extra funding, then you're not really incentivized to get away from it, right? You're like, well, look, let's just keep drinking from the water fountain. It seems to be working. One thing that you said is equity. Right. And this is like equity to me. I kind of almost can't say it with a straight face, but I would like your opinion on it, because this is one of the things that equity justifies some of what I think are the most damaging and regressive policies in public education. Because the idea is obviously, look, everybody deserves to have a shot at getting to the same finish line. All right. We all want that. Yeah. Right. Now, we also acknowledge that not everybody will, because we can't get a quality of outcome, but everybody deserves the same shot. And to that end, we all have different starting points. So if we're running a race, right, and it's like you get 3 steps ahead of me, well, and then I'm 10 steps ahead of the next guy, and, gosh, that's not equitable, right? So what the school districts, or excuse me, not this one in particular, but what people in education have been advocating for is, okay, in the name of equity, because we recognize people have different starting points, we are going to dole out aggressively different resources and different attention to different students as we see fit, based on how we determine these people deserve them or how you do not deserve them. And to me, that's just an incredibly damaging thing, because like you're saying, look, 18% of people, right, kind of get a customized education, but the 82 are like, look, whatever, like I'm getting pulled back to this point, or like this education really is not reflecting what I need, or it's not benefiting me. And that's when you have people that really just start checking out from education in general. They're like, this is wholly unengaging. It's not valuable. Like I'm not.
Yeah, anyway. They're not the challenge. Like,
right.
Providing that challenge or maybe backing off from the challenge. And I think if we look at it, because people are like, well, how do you think you can do that? I'm like, well, they're doing it with math. Right? I mean, are they doing that in your kids' schools? For me, they're doing that with math with my kids. They have groups. They go to their classes. So the teachers each teach a group that they have this assessment tool, so they can kind of see, where is this child at.
Did you say assessment tool, like a standardized test?
Yes.
It's a dirty word. Oh. Anyway, let's keep going. I digress.
But they're able to take that information, and they're able to say, this student will do well in this group, this student's able to do this group, and they're able to partner them up according to what will work best for them in that learning. So why are we just not doing a little more of that, right? I'm not saying that all of our classes need to be just grouped that way, but why not do more of these groups? Provide more opportunities. If, my kids are terrible at spelling. They really are. I mean, are your kids, maybe your kids are really rocking it, but...
My wife was like, we're pretty good at memorizing things. I'm not. Like, spell check destroyed my spelling. It's not my fault. If we grew up with typewriters, we would be dynamite, right? Because there's a consequence to misspelling something. Yeah. For me, it looks like I just hit the keyboard and hope that it autocorrects and figures it out. But anyway,
But what does that communicate, right? I mean, they make it like, oh, well, spelling doesn't really indicate your intelligence. But I'm like, well, wait a second, when I write something down on a paper and it's all misspelled and you can barely even read what I've written for you.
That indicates something.
Right? It indicates maybe, like, you might even think, wow, maybe Krista's not really that smart because she can't spell anything, right? I mean, it's communicating something. So with my kids, I see this and I think, oh my goodness, they bring me papers. I'm like, okay, well, let's just stop. Let's sound this out, working on the phonetics of it, right? And what sound is missing. And I'm like, my kids in general just deal with this. I think it's genetic from their dad, and maybe your kids deal with that too. But I look at it and I just think my kids could use a little bit more phonics in class, right? Just this phonetic awareness of like, not just this is how you spell the word and memorize it, but like, how does this word sound? And writing that down. And some kids need a little bit more of that than other kids, right? And their spelling work. And so I think it's just, and granted, like I said, we work on that at home. Like I'm trying to help them with that. But I just look at kids that don't have maybe the same resources as my kids do coming home and having me help them.
Sure.
How can we just group them up a little bit more? We have these kids who are really strong creative writers. We have these kids looking at their strengths and helping push strengths and helping them grow and develop those. Would that benefit our education system? Would that help bring us forward so maybe we weren't second to the last in the nation, right? And again, I'm just looking at Boise School District. I'm not looking at the state right now. I'm just looking at trying to get into Boise schools and build this up for our kids. Something else, Matt, we haven't really talked about that I want to really speak to is character, right? This generation and the character that they're coming out with. So I was born and raised here in Idaho. And, I gained a lot of things from my schooling. I kind of already have spoken to that. A lot of things from my home, too. But I look at what's going on in schools today. My daughter comes home from junior high. It's like, she went into junior high last year. And all of a sudden I was like flashbacks, right? All the things that were terrible about junior high. But it's so
pretty much everything. Pretty much I hated junior high.
Oh, yeah. But it's so much worse because like what I had to listen and go through on the bus is what she's listening and going through in her classroom. And she comes home and tells us about it. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Like what are you talking about? Because I never took the class, I never took the bus. I always walked or rode my bike. But like what was going on?
Lucky. Well, I mean, for her, what's going on is kids are just using the F word. Like it's just another normal word in the English language that, I mean, maybe I'm stuck somewhere but I'm like, no, because they didn't change like the whole rating system, right? Like 2 makes a rated R movie, right? I don't think that that's shifted. But so she's sitting in this classroom and she's listening to kids talk this way. She says the way that boys are talking about girls is just obscene, makes her feel really uncomfortable. And I just think, you're in a classroom and this is going on? Yeah, well, have you told your teacher? They don't care. They're not going to stop it. What can they even do? Like, well, wait a second. Like, you're supposed to be learning. You're supposed to be working on your assignments. And can you ask them if you can move? Or can you ask, So that kind of stuff shouldn't be going on, right? No classroom should be rated R. When we really sit down and look at that, no classroom should be. She shouldn't have to sit and go through that. So I said to her, well, okay, well, I'll order you some earbuds. Let's get some earbuds. She didn't even have a phone at the time. So then I'm like, okay, now I got to get some like device that you can listen to these earbuds with. So, but we just started out with earbuds because they were noise canceling. So just like pop those in your ears so you don't have to listen to all the noise around you.
Yeah, but how ridiculous is that? You're literally reducing the noise that your daughter hears in class with technology so that she doesn't, and it's not even like white noise, right? It's like she's not at a library. She's in a, classroom that's communicating and moving and and she has to literally like cancel out people speaking profanely.
Yes. And so that was kind of our solution of like, okay, how do we stay in this learning environment? Like, how do we help you continue to progress? She's a very motivated student. She's very intelligent. She could be challenged more than she is, right? She's a smart kid. And so looking at that, it was like, okay, that's our solution. We'll pop those earbuds in. Well, little did I know that was against the rules of the class.
I was going to say, how'd you pull this off? Because there's no way you could let students sit there with like headphones on.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's got long hair. No one noticed. So the problem was I told my story. I've been telling this story to people. And now they really can't wear them, which is fine because they've actually made some adjustments this year to her classrooms in her school. There's actually rules now. The kids have to check in their cell phones. They have to, not wear their earbuds. So she's following the rules. But I've just been asking her, is it going better? Well, yeah, because the teachers are actually saying like, oh, no, you can't talk that way. Well, thank goodness. That is what needs to be going on. And I don't know if that's going on in all the other junior highs. I mean, I've been asking parents in other junior highs, like, hey, did you guys get like cell phones pulled from your kids? Like they have to check them in and can't have earbuds and all these other like pretty good like regular rules. Not anything like, oh, that's so strict. I mean, the kids feel like it's strict because there's actually rules now,
right? Which
is just a boundary.
Right.
Kids are successful with boundaries being put in front of them, right? And I haven't heard from other junior highs that that's actually been the case. Is I've been asking parents, like, did you guys get this thing from the school about, parents' expectations and what we're supposed to be doing and what teachers, need to stand at their doors, and they have this book of what they're going to, so thankfully, hopefully if nothing else comes of all this, they're working on making it a better learning environment, which it should be. It should be a better learning environment. These kids go to school, they need to come out with that. And so what I'm speaking to here, Matt, is kids need to have that kind of character. They need to have that level of respect and learn it. And, again, thankfully, I see that shifting in my kids' school. And I'm thrilled.
Right.
I'm thrilled that they're saying, actually, that's not respectful. That's not respectful to talk that way. That's not respectful to act that way. Or, if you're going to do that, not here in the learning environment, right?
Right.
People can teach their kids whatever they're going to teach outside of school, but when we're at school, we're going to live by this way of being, this code.
Right. Some modicum of professionality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and again, bringing it full circle, this is like 20 years ago. It wasn't an argument to say, hey, you can't drop F-bombs in 7th grade. Like, there was no argument.
There was detention.
Right. Oh, yeah. Like 30 years ago, I remember somebody wrote, a very minor swear word on a piece of paper and threw it at me in like 7th grade or 6th grade. And the teacher picked it up, and whoever threw it got detention. I can't remember who it was. But it was like, this wasn't even stated out loud. It was written down on a little piece of paper thrown across the room. And so again, back to what we were saying, the world is so different now than it was, 20 years ago. And if you're living and operating or at least referencing a pre-iPhone era, this is a different world we're living in. I mean, like and again, to your point, look, no judgment on how people want to raise their kids outside of school. But at the very least, we need some kind of agreed upon mechanism and boundary to keep people in a specific boundary once they are at school. And if you don't have that, you're going to get all kinds of crazy. And you get exactly what you deserve, by the way. If we're like, oh, people should be free to act however they want. Not at school. Not like you want to act however you want, like dancing around your living room. That's totally fine. But like we have, for instance, indecent exposure in public. Right? Like we have rules in public spaces, and especially spaces that are public and mandatory. That's the biggest thing. You can't get away. I mean, yes, you can homeschool, which is very difficult. Like you have to be in my opinion, you have to be very fortunate to have that option. Right, because I think a lot of people have dual working parents or single family homes that just can't homeschool, right? And you have private school if you can afford it. And again, very fortunate if you can, wonderful. But I think a lot of people are like, look, I need the public schools to be this space that I can trust and lean on and believe that my kid is not going there getting some rated R movie when they're 11.
Or even when they're 16. It just shouldn't be going on. I mean, if we have to agree as parents to say, yeah, my 13 to 18-year-old can come in and watch this in entertainment, whatever it is. If it's rated R, we have to agree to it. And we have to say, we're giving approval for it. I'm not approving for that for my kids when they go to school. And I think there's a lot of parents that aren't approving for that. So we just have to make a shift. Kids need to know where their lines are. They need to hold to them. And that's what it comes down to. They need to learn how to be kind to everybody. Right? To be kind to everybody. And that doesn't mean you have to agree with everyone, but you can be kind.
Right.
We need more kindness, and we need more respect, and we need more courtesy. Just looking around you, seeing what people are going through and being aware of it. It's not, and making some space here and there. And that's what we've lost. We've gotten so stuck on these two extremes, the loud extremes that most people don't even fall within.
Right. It's like you're saying, the 82%.
Yeah.
And I know those numbers aren't, what you're referencing, but it's right. It's a bell curve. These two extremes on the far ends.
Yes.
And then the majority of people who are reasonable, good, tolerant people who are like, look, can we just get on with this?
And we might fall on one side of the line or the other,
right.
but we're all just trying to actually be good humans, to see another perspective and to be aware
Do you have any last words or last thoughts? And again, I very much appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate what you're doing. But again, anything that you feel like we haven't hit?
Well, yeah, thanks, Matt, for having me. It's been an enjoyable discussion we've had here today.
It's not bad. I told you it was going to go by fast.
Yeah, it does. It goes by real fast. So I think just my last words would be, our schools need help. Our kids need us to show up. You know, this is a public election. Everybody has the opportunity to get out there and say, you know, we can do something about this, and we can build it. And I'm the one who's saying, I'll donate my time. I'll donate my time to do it. I'll be that open person that will consider all of the constituents in the school. I'll be the person that will advocate for kids. I'll be the person that'll go to the legislature and say, hey, we need to look at this, because I've got a strong voice. I've got gifts and I've got talents, and I'm offering them up for free because I care about our kids and I care about our education system. And I want it to be more of what it was that was successful for us. And it's not too far. We're not too far gone. There's still time. There's still opportunities. So everything that's being said, everything that's being construed, all of it, just listen. Listen to us. You know, I mean, are my opponents talking about what they want to do for the next 6 years? Or are they just sitting kind of quiet? Because I'm talking about it. I'm saying what I think we need to do. I'm talking about what we need to fix, what we need to address. They're not talking about it. That's why every media outlet has just been talking about us, not them. They're talking about me trying to make my strengths look like a weakness. Well, it's not. They're still my strengths. And you can't turn me into something I'm not. It's who I am. And I'm offering it up because I care. That's it. There's no strings attached for me. I want to make schools better for my kids and for your kids and for our community. And that's it. So, you know, I mean, if that's the wrong answer, because there's no special ties for me and there's nobody looming over me, protecting me, well, too bad. Because that's the kind of person that we need in office. We've had enough of this other stuff going on. It's time to make a shift. It's time to make a change. And it's time to do it for our kids. And it just takes showing up. So thanks, Matt. Thanks for showing up today with me.
Hey, thanks for showing up too. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Quick shout out to our sponsor, C² Social. C² Social is the leading expert in social media marketing and creative marketing. They have fantastic platforms. I have been a client of theirs for some time. I cannot recommend them highly enough. C² Social for all of your social media and creative marketing needs.